Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another show. It is March Madness, Merle. Did I yell a little loud?
Yeah, you yelled in my ear again.
I'm a loud individual. It is.
I would use the word obnoxious.
It is March, and I'm ready for the madness, Merle. I'm ready.
Yeah, you are. You're just like this kid in the candy store, aren't you? Oh,
Yeah,
mommy.
I come
mommy.
in, I'm excited for the show today, and Merle's in a grumpy mood because it's snowing outside, and he's like, March sucks. And I'm like, no. Yeah. March is the best month of the year.
I officially declared March is the worst month of the year.
No way.
Simply because you never know what the weather's going to do. I'm already I don't care. Depressed because of winter, and now I get one day of a glimpse of sunshine, and the next day it snows.
It's March Madness, baby. Yeah, I'm ready.
Well,
and it's my daughter's birthday. It's Mia's birthday.
Oh, that makes it
coming up on
poor
March.
Sweet Mia.
I know, St. Patty's Day birthday.
I'm sorry, Mia. March is the best month ever.
Merle, if we're still doing this show when Mia turns 21 on St. Patrick's Day,
yeah. We'll drink a green beer with her.
We might the next day we might have to do a show on just what it's like to be a dad of a 21-year-old drunk girl.
Yeah, she will not do that.
She won't do it?
She is not made of your cloth. She has her mother. She's a good girl, not like
no,
her
that's
daddy.
Ava. Ava's a really good one. Mia is like me. She's a stinker.
The devil. So what's going on anyway?
Not much. I am. I'm excited. I'm ready for another show, and then you put the topic down, and the excitement quickly dwindled.
I zapped it. I sucked the fun right out of your life, didn't I? Oh man! So I was doing pretty well until just turn on the news, right? You turn on the news, man. Yeah. We've talked about that many times. Like you got to keep a filter on the news, otherwise you go nuts. But right now it's a little tough to keep the filter on the news.
It is. It's crazy. It's crazy right now, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about. We're going to attempt to, and by no means are you and I anywhere remotely close to professionals when it comes to.
Speak for yourself.
We're going to jump into the kind of touching a little bit on world news and stuff that's going around in our world.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the stuff going on in Ukraine and Russia, which I think is important to do. It's very easy, as very important as it is to focus in on what's going on in our home, which obviously we're going to talk about that. But I also think, if we just put blinders up and we're unaware of what's going on in the world, I think, we miss opportunities to actually look outside of our own selves and kind of see other things that are going on in the world.
Yeah, and lots of stuff going on.
There's lots.
This reminds me of when we were kids, me and my brothers, we were just always nasty to each other. It was nonstop. And whenever one of us would complain about an ache or a pain, oh man, my foot hurts, whatever, invariably one of us would come over and just slug that person like as hard as we could in the shoulder. And then we'd say, how's your foot feel now? Yeah. And that whole idea like, oh, my arm. And again, we're pretty primitive, but it's just where it is. But the idea of, tongue in cheek laughing here, what happened to COVID?
What is that?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt so bad, does it?
No, it doesn't hurt. I mean, in other words, all of a sudden you have some real stuff going on here. And I'm not here to minimize COVID. Right. What I'm saying is the natural tendency to go to the greatest pain, like, wow. So this puts COVID in perspective in terms of on a world stage. What's stealing the news now? So it's not to minimize COVID. COVID is what it is. It's serious and dangerous and all these other things. But right now, it's not as serious as is what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. So
Well,
anyway,
speaking of that, what are some of your thoughts? What do obviously there's a lot to digest there and a lot to look at, and I don't think either of us want to get into the the strategy of what the military should be doing or shouldn't be doing. But what are some of your thoughts on this madness that is the Ukraine and Russia war?
Yeah. The work that I do, where I'm always working with men and families and stuff like that. And a couple thoughts that come to mind is the heart. The heart, by at least all measures of the news that we were supposed to be getting and hopefully trusting, was that, Russia's military was incredibly more powerful and larger than Ukrainians, but they're not just going over there and kicking butt. They're finding resistance. And what you're finding is the Russians aren't quite sure why they're going over there. The mission is maybe a little bit like, well, we need to do this because these people were there was a group of people over there that were kind of anti-Russia, and they're being mean to the Ukrainians. So they were just being fed this lie. Yep. And the Ukrainians are like, wait, what are you doing coming into our country? And so they basically awoken the giant, the heart of these people. And I just have found it really interesting, kind of in a sad way, but a good way. It's sad that these last night over 200 million reported over 2 million refugees, leaving Ukraine, and that's women and children, and the men are staying behind. And that's like we've not made that statement in this country in a long time. The men are staying behind. Did you hear that, strong dads out there? The men are staying behind, up to the age of 60. Like I was joking with Linda the other day. I was like, I'd still have a chance to fight. Only a few months, but still, the idea here is
staying behind to fight.
Yeah, and these are what the men are doing, right? And the men are called to come in and to protect. And I think this is something that's really, awoken again in me. Like this is just that innate instinct that we as men need to be aware of and to understand why it is that, and it doesn't mean these women are not strong. My gosh, they're getting ready to go through a battle like you see them trudging their kids along, and they're cold, and the kids are crying, and the uncertainty. They're in a battle like nobody else. But the men are like, here, you go to safety. We're going to come back here, and we're going to fight for our freedom. It reminded me of Braveheart. It reminded me of Braveheart. Like, you can go ahead and roll tail up right now, but will you be able to sleep with yourself when you just rolled over and gave your freedom away?
I like it.
William Wallace, baby, right there.
The blue face and all, I like it.
You got it.
Yeah, this has been something, I called you and like, hey, what do you think about doing a show on this? And this has been something I've really just been intrigued with all of it, and just looking at trying to take a step back, knowing that we are not, as of right now, directly involved in all of this madness, right? That is going on. Obviously, we are still, involved in some regards. But man, I've been trying to look at it in more of a humanitarian issue. And the craziness that's going on, at church on Sunday, our pastor, who his family is actually from that region, in that region, and talking about how there's a church and there's a group of people that are bunkered down in this church in Ukraine, and every evening they're going out and they're actually picking up kids that are left behind because
like orphaned kids,
because when the mom and dad are fleeing and trying to get out of this situation, it's harder to take a kid with them. And man, it just breaks your heart, the humanitarian issue that is going on. And every evening they're going in, they're collecting these kids and they're bringing them to the into this church, and they're trying to take care of these kids. And you look at that humanitarian crisis, and then it's very easy to just disqualify all of Russia, and Russia is evil, right? And I think here in America we have a tendency to do that, but there are Russian people who don't agree with their government.
Oh,
right. Just like here in America, we don't always agree with our government.
Yeah. Well, the active protesting that's going on in Russia is pretty amazing, because when we actively protest here, worst case scenario, we have a riot squad come in and break us up and send us home. These guys have 15 years imprisonment, and may very good likelihood that they're not coming out of there alive.
Yeah, but it just, the people over in Russia are dealing, I think, again, it's very easy to disqualify for them. A lot of these sanctions that the world is putting on Russia are actually hurting the Russian people. And I'm not here to defend and say if it's right or wrong to do those sanctions. I'm just saying if you take a step back, these Russian peoples are unable to get their money out of their banks to live their entire life savings. And I just think there's so many humanitarian issues. And I hope it doesn't come across as like I don't think it's worth fighting. If I was a Ukrainian, heck yeah, let's go. Like someone's actually invading our country. Go back to what you're talking about, the men actually standing up and protecting. So yeah, this whole madness that is over there. I'm just trying to take a step back and actually look at it in a perspective of these are still human beings at the end of the day.
Yeah, they are. And I think that, that's why you're actually trying to put pressure on the people so that the people put pressure on the leadership.
Yep.
And so you're really trying to get the attention from within. And so I definitely feel for that. I mean, if you can take that one step farther to this country, I mean, you're now going to, because of our leadership, whether you like it or you don't like it, is making very unpopular decisions, especially with our production of energy resources. And so we are going to feel the pinch. And so watch what happens in our November elections. Watch what happens. We are going to scream out and say, listen, you're pinching us, our quality of life and that kind of thing. So
can I stop you real fast?
Yeah.
I had something that happened the other day, and I think, again, our massive audience out there, all you guys out there listening to us. So I was in Lowe's the other day, and obviously if any man, woman, child has ever gone into Lowe's, Home Depot, or indifferent, whatever, price of lumber is crazy high right now, right?
Yep.
So I was in Lowe's. I was buying a couple 2x4s, and I looked at one of the workers, and I said, man, are these prices ever going to come down? And he looked at me, and he said, well, it's your president that did it. Not mine, he said. And I took a step back, and let me just again, man, it just frustrated me. It doesn't matter if you like the man that's in the office or woman that's in office. They are still our president. They are still our president. You may not like the policies that they come with, but man, they are still your president. I don't agree with the vast majority of what any of them do, but they're still my president. And I just, golly, we live in a country where we actually get to vote on who's in office, right?
Yeah. So the point there, like, I don't agree with a whole lot of what's going on. But I need to go through the proper channels to make the changes. Yeah. And so that is, that's what separates our country from so many other countries. Like the proper channels in a lot of other countries is go get the bigger gun and go shoot the guy and then put your guy in.
Yeah.
All right. And so we actually have a mechanism that we've, at least to this point, respected to vote or change these kind of leaders. And so, I'm not in favor of what's going on a lot of different levels here. But he's still our president.
Yeah,
and again,
it just
elections have consequences,
yep.
right? And this can go back from previous elections. So there's a reason why this man is in. Yep. And so whether you like that past man or not, well, he did not do all things right in terms of getting the people, to think he was awesome. Yeah. So elections have consequences.
But I think it feeds that one of the reasons why I said that is I think it feeds right into this idea, which we're going to get into, of being united. Like we have to have a united front, regardless if you like the man that's in president or not. Like at the end of the day, we as the people of this country have to stay united.
Well, and we're going to get into that.
Let's
right?
get into that.
Like we're going to get into that because I think that's. We are not the experts in the military front, and and we don't want to come off as that. I mean, like,
absolutely.
You can put all my knowledge on my pinky finger on that one, okay? But I do have a lot of experience in a core value that makes up this country, and that is the family and how men operate. And so I think that's where we can spend our time, okay. And that's where we can actually do something, okay? We better thank some people. Man,
I'm long-winded today. You got me fired up. It's March Madness, and the Ukrainians are getting
my
bombed.
Sleep Number bed, which is not an advertisement, by the way, but if they would like to sponsor us, they can.
We'd love to have
But my Sleep Number bed said that I got a pretty good night's sleep last night.
Look at you. Anyways, Strong Dads, we would like to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. Thanks so much for Mark and all the employees down there. I really do appreciate what you guys do. Thanks so much for coming alongside of us. Go check Crimers Beer House out down on Route 128.
All right. We also want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for being a supporter of Strong Dads.
You almost said Rock Solid Family.
And I did. You could feel it coming out, but also Rock Solid Families. And just for the continued support, the efforts that they put into our community. Yep. So we want to thank Casey and his crew down there. So for all your landscaping needs or any gift ideas that you're looking for, go check out Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed. They have incredible stuff and good quality work.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about the idea. You asked me, like, what are some things that I'm noticing? I talked about William Wallace there in Braveheart, and that whole idea came down to the idea of what every man, in our core level, what we're actually desiring for our own life and for our family and the community we live in. We don't want to be oppressed. We don't want to be dictated to. We don't want to be told what to do and how to do everything we do. And so the word we use here, of course, is freedom. Like, we want freedom, right? And I think this is a huge conversation, because when you've always had a level of freedom, you don't really you lose your edge of protecting it. Whereas when if you were a slave back in the 1800s, the whole smell of freedom was raw. Like you desired it. It was with the fight of the Civil War, and so you think of the bloodiest war in U.S. history on our own home front. You talk about heart. There was a lot of heart in that, and so. One of the things that we're seeing in this situation in Ukraine is the awakening of the heart. And I think this is a heart check for you and I as men in this country. Like, what are we doing to make sure that our heart's not going stagnant, that we're just not being passive because of comfort, right? If I'm so comfortable, I don't even think about my desire or my heart for anything. Oh, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm on the beach here in my recliner. It's all good.
That idea of freedom just made me think of, man, I don't know about any of you guys out there, but this is something I struggle with. If I rewind myself back to before I got married, and the freedom, quote unquote freedom that I had.
You were a wild man.
Well, I wasn't, but the freedoms that I had, or that I thought I had, right? That, and then it's like any of you guys jumping into marriage or who have been married for a little bit of time realize that those freedoms are translated. They're a little bit different now, right? You don't have the freedom because, again, part of those freedoms that you thought you had were probably a little bit self-centered and a little selfish.
You defined it differently, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So now jumping into the marriage and then you jump into having kids and for a lot of guys, maybe what we're talking about, this idea of freedom. Some guys feel like that freedom's being taken away from them because of what is going on in their world, in their own home, right? And I think, obviously, we can look at a big world, perspective. Everything that's going on over in Russia and Ukraine, the actual Ukrainian people are fighting for their freedom. But when we look at our own home, sometimes men think, again, perspective, right? When you put things in perspective, I think sometimes men get caught up in this idea that I don't have freedom because I'm married and I have kids, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Again, it looks a little bit different. You redefine it. So I think that's obviously you and Linda get into sessions with people who the men are angry and frustrated because they don't feel like they have those freedoms, right?
And the women too, because they feel very bogged down by taking on all of these different jobs and responsibilities. So that's why freedom in itself is a very complex subject, and we throw it around so loosely. But it's very, it's very complex.
Right there?
Yeah, I'm dying again. It's morning. It's complex because we think of freedom as do whatever I want to do. And back in the 60s and the 70s, we really started to push that word freedom. I can do my own thing.
Free love,
do my
baby.
own thing. Free love, all of this openness, and whatever I want to do,
I remember
I can
the
do.
60s, Merle.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's a whole nother. We could go down a lot of roads on that one.
Free love?
You're the result of that era.
I'm the result of free love?
Yeah. And now we wonder why we've got the challenges we got. My generation created your generation. We should always slap right in the face. Let's get back on course.
Yeah, back in freedom.
So that idea of, us understanding what freedom is, I should be free to play my music any way I want to play it, right? Like if I want to play my music loud, I'll play it loud because it's mine. Well, that's fine until my neighbor can't sleep at night because my music is so loud. Well, that's your problem. It's my music and it's in my house and I'll play it loud. And so all of a sudden it starts to get a little bit dirty, right? Like maybe you're not so free to do that, okay? And so this freedom thing, we never really have this 100% true freedom. We are all slaves to something, okay? And I use that word very loosely. I'm not talking about the conventional work slave. I'm talking about something, we're tethered to something, okay? And so at the end of the day, we believe we're all slaves to God, right? In other words, we're tethered to God and we have a reliance on God. And I think if we don't understand like what you're actually tethered to, you won't understand the responsibility that you have with your freedom. And so part of this is us as strong dads in our conversation today is, boys, it's a wake-up call right now. It's a wake-up call for you to be very clear about what you're tethered to, whether I'm tethered to or something's tethered to me. My kids are tethered to me, right? So they're dependent on me. So the idea that I just go out and do my own thing, listen, this is why divorce is not cool, guys, all right? Like when we are tethered to this family and we just go, this whole thing's driving me crazy. I'm not willing to do the work anymore to try to bring it back together. Well, something's dependent on me and it's going to be hurt or fractured. All right.
Which, when we look at the world crisis that's going on now, man, that couldn't be that's so true. When it comes to, the what Russia provides to the world in some regards, obviously there's other means that we can do, but Russia provides a crap ton of energy to the entire free world, right? Us included in America. And so when you talk about, we're trying to put sanctions on Russia and whatever that looks like, agree or disagree, we are currently doing that, right? But it also brings to light the idea that we're tethered to Russia. Any way you look at it, we are relying on some of their energy that they provide for our country.
Or at least but our allies for sure, our European allies.
And so I think you bring up a great point that, sometimes this idea of freedom, it has a cost, right? There's something associated with it because we are so closely tethered to Russia. One thing, I didn't realize how close that our two countries are to each other. And
you haven't looked at a map lately?
Well, I forgot the whole globe thing, that it's actually round, it's not flat. So every time you look at a flat map, you always see Russia over here and America, pretty far away, or what it seems to be pretty far away, but they're actually very, very close.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that, bro.
Yeah.
Well, that's like a...
No, you can be in Alaska and you can actually look over and see on Russia. A nice clear day. You can see Russia.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Well, I think it's important too that one of the things we realize, like how we're tethered, who's tethered to us, but why? Why are we tethered? Okay? Because I understand that when something's tethered to me, they become reliant upon me. When I'm tethered to somebody else, I become reliant upon them. So I need to ask the why question. Well, why? And is that hurting my freedom or my independence? So, I think there's a really strong talk here to be made with, we really need to understand, like in this country, who we're going to tether to. I've said many times on the show, I don't negotiate with my kids until I can trust their value system. And the reason for that is because I want their value system to reflect or at least honor my value system before I'm going to engage in that. And little kids tend to value themselves first, and that's okay. That's what little kids do.
Sure.
But I'm not going to negotiate with so-called the enemy because I don't trust their value system. Well, here we are, finding ourselves now. We've stopped bringing oil from Russia here, but now we are then going to tether, which we should have never tethered to Russia to begin with because we couldn't trust their value system, all right? But now we're going to tether to other countries, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, or whoever else, when in fact we need to be really thinking about how do we get out and secure ourselves. If we're going to talk about freedom here, which is what all this is about, all right, this whole Ukrainian thing, these people are fighting for the freedom. And if we want to have that, and the people who are tethered to us, that we're going to help honor them, then we need to stop, doing these negotiations with people that we don't trust their value system. And I talk about that because what a great thing to teach your kids. All right, not on a national level. All right, they're not old enough, probably, if we're talking about elementary age kids. We're not talking about that. But this goes right back down to what kind of kids are you going to let your kids play with? I don't care if that kid is funny or cool or has all the latest toys.
Yep.
Do you want to be connected to a kid who you don't trust their value system? This is at a very basic level. And we can be so confused, but mom, but dad, like this kid has a swimming pool in his backyard.
Yeah.
Man, he's got all kinds of cool stuff. I don't care.
Yeah.
You need to know that just because there's a pool in his yard, you become dependent on your recreation and your fun, and this is not a nice kid.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a very basic thing that we want to get into in terms of what we as dads need to really hone in on and start driving in our homes and protecting in our homes.
Yep. So let's get into that idea. I mean, like, we obviously can sit here and talk about the world and the mess that is currently going on, but let's get down to like the nitty gritty of this conversation. And that's Merle, as I'm sitting here getting ready to say this, I realize we've said this a couple of times on this show, and not to say that it's not important. We keep bringing it up because it is that very important. This idea that we can look outside of the home for the mess that's going on in the world, but man, it has to start in our home. We have to start realizing that collectively, if we don't fix collectively as an American, as the world, if we don't start to look in the mirror and realize that everything that goes in our home and the mess that we have in our home, if we don't fix that mess first, it's going to be very difficult to go out and try and fix our community,
No doubt.
Then fix our state, and then fix our country, and then fix our world. It has to start in your home. If you guys work anywhere where the morale is down, we've done shows on work and morale. When you look at morale, you start to think like, golly, there's 100 things that need to be changed in our company, our business, whatever. And it's like, if every day you wake up and say, golly, there's 100 things that need to be fixed. The next day you wake up, golly, there's 100 things that need to be fixed. Let's tackle one at a time. Okay. What's the whole thing? Like, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Right. So let's get back to the basics of this problem of being free and having a constitution that you follow. It starts in your home. And I think, that's where as strong dads, we need to put our faith, put our hope in our actual home, in the hopes that we are raising kids that can go out and they can affect their own home.
Yep.
And then again, that's that trickle effect, that domino effect. You are one domino in a massive setup of dominoes. And if you falter, you fall, you're going to knock over the rest of them. Like, let's get ourselves standing true and firm, right, in what we actually believe in.
Yeah, this is such a hard thing because people want instant fixes,
Yep.
but they don't understand because I'm the same way, right? Immediate gratification. I love my microwave, right? I just get in and get out. It's all about it. And so that's my selfish desire. But the idea here is if I want a divided nation, I start by dividing the family. And so that dissension in the family, we can see from the statistics that, in the 60s and the 70s, we had the greatest increase in family division. And we've talked about that before. And so that idea that when we started to divide the family, and I was, joking before, like my generation created your generation. Well, listen, my generation was really the first product of a hard division, like we were breaking up more.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now we're creating kids that, it's all about like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going my way. And so the concept here of united we stand, divided we fall, that sounds so cliche, but
It's so true though, isn't it?
Yeah, we're living it out here. So it's so important that us as strong dads work for unity in the home. And we don't allow, and hear me out, we don't allow the small things to supersede the general values or what I call the constitution of the home. All right. Whether one child in the home gets what they want, if that comes at the expense of the value of how we're going to run, sorry, one child, you're not going to get what you want at the cost of everybody. We see this, hey, I have my kids involved in all these select sports. And so you're not going to get to do this because the whole family's got to go and travel to this ball game, that's 8 hours away. And so, again, I'm not condemning that action as much as, well, what's it going to cost the value of the family and the unity of the family? That's what I have to measure. Like we consciously made that decision. Like, no, you're not going to be on this select wrestling team because the rest of the family is not going to sacrifice for you to go have your fun weekend. Yeah. All right. And I'm not minimizing the importance of, hey, him wanting to get that. But there are other avenues, and we're not going to basically cause inner family division so that we start to resent each other. All right. So unity is so important. Think about, listen, I'm not going to do anything that's going to break the value of the home. And as the dad, I'm going to protect whatever it is that we stand for. All of my kids know that. My wife and I are on the same page.
This idea of that unity in your home, I think of in my world, in my work, in the fire service world, there are national standards that come out in which we have to follow as a collective American fire service. We have to follow those standards, right? And then inside each fire department, they can choose to take that a little step further and have a little bit higher standards for their people. Right, and so,
but they have to follow the base. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So basically, if the national standard says my gear has to be made up of 3 layers, again, this is not true. But what I'm saying is the national standard is it has to be made of 3 layers. But in the city of Dayton, my fire department can say we're going to have 4 layers. We're going to go a step above.
Gotcha.
We're going to go a step above the national standard because we want to hold our people to a higher standard. We want to have them more protected, right? And again, there's only 3 layers of the fire gear. But anyways, that's just an example. So I think when it comes to where we live in this country, we do have a constitution, right? We have a constitution that says the things we're allowed to do and so on and so forth, right? And we have laws. Man, what would it look like if you and your home took it a step further? What if we held our family to a higher standard, held ourselves to a higher standard, and began to see the ripple effects of that? So, in America, you have the ability to, whatever constitution, whatever amendment you want to look at, if you tackle that and say, okay, yeah, I do have the right to defend myself, right? But let's go a step further. I also have the right to forgive people when they do hurt me, right? So let's begin to hold ourselves to that higher standards. Yes, we live in a country where we have freedoms beyond belief that no other country in the world has. But what are we doing with those? Are we just doing the base level freedoms that we have in this country? Or are we allowing and holding our family to that higher standard, holding ourselves to a higher standard?
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea. We oftentimes use the law as our minimum. Well, at least I didn't break the law.
Yep.
And the idea no, the law is just a base minimum so that the culture can exist. Like in my home, the law, there might not be a law against cussing, but in my home, we're not going to talk to people that way.
Yep.
Right. So that kind of thing, I think, you're right. That's really important, and we need to be aware of that. I think, though, too, one thing that we've somewhat fed and perpetuated is the disrespect of the law. Like, if we are one thing I want to teach my kid in my own home is to understand first why we have the law. Okay, so we have something called freedom in America, unlike any other country to be, and so this is why we have these laws. This is what has allowed to transpire because of these laws, and so slowly I'm teaching my kids this, and then the idea then that I need them to learn to respect that law. Okay. Does that mean a law should never be broken or changed? No, I mean, but there are means to do that. If you don't like a law, go through the proper channels to get it changed. Teach your kids the rule of law and the importance of it and the proper means to get it changed. All right.
So you're saying if I don't like something, I shouldn't just bitch and complain about it. I should actually
well,
go to action.
you can do that, but yeah, but if you want to change it, I mean, again, it's designed to not be an easily flowing system. Because if I could snap my fingers and immediately change it, it would be very impulsive, right? And that would be the laws changing just at the snap of the finger. That's a dangerous thing to do when you've got the size of the ship that we have here and you're trying to keep it moving in a direction. So getting your kids to understand, like, listen, I know you might not understand the rules of our home. I'm not asking you to understand them completely, but I am asking you to respect them. All right. And when our value systems start to match and we can trust each other's value systems, then we will start talking about whether we can alter or change or amend something.
Yep.
So I think that's a huge thing that us as dads, we can't just, as soon as our kid whines and complains, that we instantly just, all right, well, I'm tired of hearing your complaint and we'll go ahead and change it. No, you can't do that. That's what happens. That's what, we complain in this country about all these special interest groups. And listen, a lot of them might have a really great case, but we have to go through the proper means to see and vet that out as to what that's going to do to the fabric of the country. We can't just let a riot, in a city invoke all of our emotions, and the next thing you know, we cow down to basically the spoiled brat.
Yep. Which, I think that brings up a great point when in this conversation. Man, if you guys are out there and maybe your home, maybe your house is flipped upside down, maybe there's a lot of turmoil going on inside your house, and sure, we can look at the world stage and see that there's a lot going on there. But I think when we look at your own home, I think if you don't already know this or it's not apparent to you, man, there's a lot of pieces to those puzzles that cause the turmoil and the craziness that go in your home. And I think it's important to realize that it takes everyone in the home to change that home, right? It's not something, yes, you can be the leader in that, and you can begin to initiate the change that you want to make or that you see, because we do ultimately, as strong dads, we do have a constitution that we follow. And it's not, I say this a little reluctantly, we do follow, obviously, the Constitution of the United States. But more important, again, going a step further, holding ourselves to a higher standard, our Constitution is the Bible.
Right.
As strong dads, that's where we hold, because we know that, yes, a man wrote our Constitution for the United States, but our ultimate truth comes from God's Constitution, being the Bible, right? So when it comes to our actual home, we should hold every member of our home to that Constitution of, what does Scripture say? And again, we're all flawed individuals, and I think that's where the forgiveness parts come in. But when we talk about actually changing our home, man, I think every person in that home needs to be on board with that, because it's very difficult to change things in your world if collectively you're not together, you're not unified in that. Again, divided you fall. If you're not together, in that mission of change your home, if you and your wife are not on the same page, man, let's change that. Let's get on the same page. Seek out counsel, seek out coaching. Come to Rock Solid Families and talk about the things so you can collectively begin to change your home and hold your house to that higher standard.
Well, I'd have to address the idea here of that higher standard. What I would also like to refer that is God's word is truth. And so a lot of this gets into, like on an international stage, well, what's truth by the Russian standard?
Yeah.
What's truth by the Ukrainian standard? What's truth by the American standard?
Yep.
And so if we don't come to an understanding of what truth actually is, then we're constantly going to be trying to throw our own truth and spin it our way, right? And so that's a bias that is it's self-protecting. Like, I want to protect my own issues.
Yeah.
So I need to teach my kids from a very young age, not just like, well, God's in control. I need to say, listen, His truth is what we base everything off of. It doesn't matter whether you and I disagree with His truth. God's nature is God's nature. And so from a very early age, I want my kids to know God created truth, not man. And when man starts to input his judgment on God's truth, we get into dangerous places, as we are seeing right now. And so I want my kids to know where truth comes from. And when they are out, as they get to become teenagers and they hear things like kids messing with their gender and kids doing this and kids doing that and breaking rules or stealing or whatever the kids do, right? And kids do all these things in the experimentation phase because they would love to get their way. I need to have my kids understand, well, how does that go up against God's word? Right? And I want my kids to have that strength to know, that is in conflict with God's word. I am not going there. That's not something I want to be part of. On the other hand, if it's not in conflict with God's word, hey, then fine. That's almost like one of those things of style, right? Who cares? Today we're wearing, cut up jeans. Tomorrow we're going to be wearing plaid pants. That would be really ugly. You probably never wore plaid pants, did you?
I did not.
I did. Right there. 1972 plaid pants.
This is why I am like I am, because people like Merle. Anyways, yeah, man, I think, as we close, getting ready to close the show up, I think maybe a point to make, or hopefully a takeaway from this is what's going on in your home isn't just going to change by accident. Like there is a call to action. I truly do believe God calls all men into action, to be aggressive in this. I truly do believe God calls men to have action. So you can listen to this, what Merle and I are spewing on these mics, and you can just let it go in one ear and out the other. But it's like, at what point are you going to actually have action behind what you're hearing? So, man, God is calling every man, myself included, into action. So let's go out there and let's be let's be the person, the man that our family needs in order to change what is going on, the turmoil that's going on in your actual home.
Yeah, you be the true north, right? Or the director to guide the true north. That's your call, Dad, to be strong in that way. 1 Timothy 2, verses 1 and 2, I think we also, as you were talking about before, people kind of bashing the president, that's not as productive as doing what I'm going to recommend here out of First Timothy. It says, first of all, then I urge that entreaties and prayers, petitions and thanksgivings be made on behalf of all men, for kings and all who are in authority, so that we may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. Guys, what we really need to be doing right now, rather than spending all of our time bashing our president, is we really need to be praying. We need to be praying for him, that the Spirit pulls on him and his staff and all of our Congress people, Lord, that they would be basically awakening the giant, the heart inside of them that really says, this is the direction that we need to go.
Yeah, I like it, man. I hope you guys got something out of this conversation. I hope you're along with us, are frustrated about the stuff that's going on in the world, but also realize, man, we got to be frustrated and that passionate about the stuff that's going on in our own home. Like our own, let's fix our stuff that's going on in our own home first, and then sure, we can go out and put out the fires of our neighbors. So, man, I hope you guys are having a good week. I hope this sparks some good conversations. Don't be afraid to have these hard conversations with your kids. Again, obviously age appropriate, but man, have the conversation about what's going on in the world. We talked about it in church on Sunday. Man, we can't bubble wrap our kids and allow them to not see what's going on in this world. I truly do believe we need to allow our kids to experience the flaws of the world, right? How can you know the truth of really what is the truth of God if they don't see what is the truth of Satan? Like, we have to see that Satan is real. He is out there. He's doing crazy, maddening things. Like, let's go back to the truth, and that is the scripture.
Yeah, and when we're doing this with our kids, we have to arm our kids. Yeah. So I'm not going to just let them watch the news and get in panic. Yeah. I'm going to sit with them. We may watch a bit of the news age appropriately, and then I'm going to say, okay, listen, what does God's word say about this? How do we handle this in our family? What does it mean? I just have to say, we've mentioned before, Kyle, my situation. I have two sons that are very active in the military, at a very high level of some intense work. And there's nobody that wants this to go way faster than I do. I have no interest in watching my sons get involved in this. And for that reason, we're not shooting from the cuff here like is somebody who's just trying to say how it should be done. We have vested interest. We have blood is there as well, and the potential to lose blood. And so I pray that we really are thoughtful about what we're doing here, but we have to start in our home. Stop looking at what's going on around the world that's crazy and start in your home. Start with your kids. Start with your wife. You've got to be united, and then keep the reason for unity strong in that family. So that's our big takeaway here. This started as a family issue in terms of our division. Let's bring some unity back, and let's start with the family.
I like it. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks so much for Crimer's Beer House, Casey Outdoor Solutions, for coming alongside of us. Reach out to Rock Solid Families. They'd love to come alongside you and help in whatever way they can. I know Merle and Linda are always waiting for that phone call. I
don't know that we're waiting, but man, they're coming in like crazy.
If they're going to be there, you guys want to be there to come alongside them and speak. Because obviously, again, it's not Merle and Linda's words. They're drawing it from our Constitution as believers in Christ. They're drawing it from Scripture based. So reach out to them. Thanks so much, guys. Go out there and be some strong dads. Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimer's Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimer's Beer House.